Hi YouTube, it's Kathy, and this is my weekly entertainment wrap-up for February 16th through 22nd. This week I read 2 books, I watched 5 shows, I watched 1 movie, and I listened to 4 audiobooks. I am also surprised by that number, especially considering Audiobook-a-thon isn't for a few weeks. First, I finished the Bromance book club. This is actually the first in a series, although this one only came out last year, so it's pretty recent. There aren't any other books in the series out yet so far. And it centers this baseball player and his wife who are having a little bit of problems. You see, one day he hits a grand slam and they have really great sex at night and she actually comes, which apparently she never has with him before because she's been faking it. He gets pretty huffy about this, refuses to talk to her for like a month, and then she asks for a divorce. When his baseball buddies get wind that he is having marital problems and might end up getting a divorce, they actually bring him into their book club, which is all about reading romance novels to figure out how to fix their own relationships. The academic feminist words coming out of these baseball players' mouths at times were just chef's kiss. Now, as it is with romance books like this, there was a lot of parallel between the book that he was assigned to read and what was actually happening in their lives. And I was okay with that because there was a ton of separation between the characters he was reading about and the modern day life that he was living with all these very vibrant characters. I love when books like this just challenge the notion that romance books are just for girls and they're just chick lit and they're nothing, because I hate that read on things like this. And I'm very interested to see how the series goes from here. This week, as part of I Read Canadian, as well as I just wanted to read it and it happened to be in from the library, I read Agnes Murderess. This is a graphic novel about this historical figure where a lot of liberties have been taken because we don't exactly know all of her backstory. Because she was born in, I think, the 1840s and up through there, and we didn't actually start seeing things written about her until the 1970s. So the author says right out that she just kind of made up a bunch of things, but also tried to keep as much truth as she could, but that's hard because you don't know what exactly is true. Basically, Agnes was born in the Hebrides in Scotland. She was the daughter of a woman who was very high and up and coming in the London society, and then a sailor. And the sailor basically just took this woman, plopped her down in the Hebrides, and ran away, and was like, yeah, I'm totally coming back. No. Agnes and her mother are also living with her dad's mother, and she has a reputation for being the town witch, and she isn't a very nice person, and that's a whole situation. About the first third of the book is just kind of trying to escape that situation. The second third is her time living in London, and the last third is her time immigrating to Canada and what she ends up doing there, which you might be able to guess from the title of the book. I enjoyed this. This obviously has a little bit of Burke and Hare vibes, which I'm here for because that was a story that I found very interesting when I was living in Scotland. The art was very simple but also very effective, and there were a few queer elements thrown in there, so I was obviously here for that. On to the shows I watched, the first one being a few more episodes of The Expanse. We're still in the 2nd season. I think we still have a couple more episodes to go in this season. I'm not entirely sure. I've really honestly lost the plot on this. They're still on space adventures. Mars and Earth still want to kill each other. The Belters are kind of caught in the middle of this. Adam Savage showed up at one point and I was like, wait, why is the guy from Mythbusters on this spaceship? I'm still enjoying it while I'm watching it, but I don't feel like I have a lot to say about it. Next, we also watched the first 5 episodes of Living With Yourself, which we found because we were like, wait, Paul Rudd has a TV show on Netflix? And yes, Paul Rudd does have a TV show on Netflix. They are shorter episodes, about 22 minutes in runtime, and the basic plot of the first episode, before we get into the twist that you can probably figure out if you thought really hard, is Paul Rudd is having a hard time. I'm just gonna call him Paul Rudd. I can't remember the character's name. Anyway, Paul Rudd is having a hard time. He's not feeling very inspired at his work. He and his wife are trying to conceive, but he doesn't want to go get a sperm test. He's just having like a hard time, just wants things to be easier. And this guy who's been on a high is like, hey, I have this spa that I went to and that's why I feel so great and that's why everything is going my way, and you should go because I get a referral fee, so you should do it. And he goes, and it doesn't go like he thinks it's gonna go. Obviously anything I say more than that is total spoilers, and things change a lot. I really like his wife as a character. She is Irish and obviously played by an Irish woman based on her name. And because I lived in Dublin for a year, it's just really nice to hear that accent again. Next, I watched the first episode of The World According to Jeff Goldblum, which was all about sneakers, and oh my goodness, there's so much to do with sneakers that I have never considered. Like the fact that there's a sneaker con and people pay only in cash for these things, and it's Like, millions of dollars are transacted during this thing. Like, I had heard of sneakerheads before. I know that some people take their sneakers very seriously. I know that some sneakers are very, very expensive. I'm obviously not in that world. I'm the type of person who buys kids' shoes because my feet are small enough that I can do so, and I usually get 2 pairs for 20 bucks from like Ardene's because I'm cheap, they're cheap, they look cool until they crap out. I need an actual good pair of sneakers one of these days, especially before I go on my trip, but I do not have hundreds of dollars to spend on them. Jeff is very charming and interesting, and all of the people that we saw on the show were really cool, and I really liked the editing of this show. Just all the different graphics and how it was put together, I was really digging it. And I could see myself watching all of the episodes in a row, but I really actually want to savor it, which means it's a good thing that it's on Disney Plus and I don't have Disney Plus, but my friend does, because then we can watch about 1 episode a week and that'll be fine. This week I also watched the 2nd episode of the 40th season of Survivor, Winners at War. The person that went to Exile Island painted their own way there. Nobody was going to vote that person off, and then they were just like, I think it's gonna be me, so I'm gonna go ahead and try to sabotage somebody else, and was not strategic in it at all. I'm indifferent to this castaway. I kind of forget they're there at all times, so I'm fine with it. My roommate and I also watched 1 episode of the 1st season of Australian Survivor because we're still working our way through that. And there's this one castaway that people have painted as a snake, and I just don't see why, and the more he keeps getting attacked for being a snake, the more I actually liked him, whereas before I was kind of ambivalent to him. Like, I liked him a little, but I wasn't like rooting for him, and the more that people are mean to him, the more I want him to do well, which is unfortunate because he went home in this episode. But he geeked out so hard about it, which made it kind of adorable. The one movie I watched this week is something I haven't seen since it probably came out when I was a teenager, and that was Mulan. Again, my friend Steph has Disney Plus, so this is how this happened. It's also one of her favorite movies, and I was like, you know what, I haven't seen this in years, let's go for it. Looking back on this, there is so much humor in this that is very, very North American, like little North American references, which made me go, okay, yep, this is a Disney thing, gotcha. There are also these cute little sight gags that I really liked, such as when 3 men were pretending to be geishas, but then they pulled out what they were using as boobs, and one of them had like an orange and a banana. I was like, wait, what? And then of course this reminded me that we are getting a live action. It's going to be very different, it's going to be much darker, and I'm very much looking forward to that. Let's get on to the 4 audiobooks I listened to. I wish I could tell you that these were all like very short kids audiobooks, and one of them was a very short audiobook, but then there were 2 more that were full-length audiobooks, and I'm not entirely sure how I did this. First we have Matilda, which is a book by Roald Dahl that I never read growing up, and you would think that I would, considering how much of a bibliophile I am. Also, I know that Mara Wilson plays Matilda in the movie, but I still haven't seen the movie because I don't know why. It's on my list of things to watch for sure. Matilda, if you also have never read it, is about a little girl who is very neglected by her parents, but by the age of 4 teaches herself to read. In fact, she's reading a lot of books by that age. She goes to the local library, reads through all the kids' books, and then the local librarian starts giving her adult books to read when she's 5 years old, and she consumes them, and she doesn't always understand everything, but she can read them just fine. She gets to school and her teacher is really nice and realizes that she's a genius and that she should be put forward in grades, but the headmistress is a complete tool and actually very terrible to children, and it says no, basically, so it doesn't happen. Reading this as an adult just made me really angry at times because of all of the child abuse that was happening, but then I would have to remember to look at it in this kind of whimsical way, because I did read The Twits when I was a kid, and that's basically just about this old married couple that just like bickers back and forth and plays pranks on each other, and that's basically what this is, but it's with a child getting back at adults who are being terrible. And although the adults are terrible and they suck and they make me so angry, it was also very fun to see what happened with this small child doing these very interesting pranks. I was also discussing it before I was finished with it, and Chad mentioned something that I was going to learn in like 20 minutes anyway that was a total spoiler. I was like, you know what? I thought it was going that way, so it's fine. So there are a few other extra layers. It gets wrapped up pretty nicely, and I enjoyed it. Also, this audiobook was read by Kate Winslet, which was amazing because she did great voices for all the different characters. The only problem I had with this audiobook was the sound mixing could have been better, because she would have this regular voice that she would talk in for the narration, but then a lot of the characters were yelling, so I would have to turn my volume up and down depending on whether or not it was just regular narration or the characters were yelling at each other, and that became quite tiresome. Next, I listened to the audiobook adaptation of Hey Kiddo, which is an autobiographical graphic novel. How do you make an audiobook out of a graphic novel? Well, funny you should ask. There is a whole article about the process of this, but basically they filled in what you would be seeing with the kind of text that you would get in a regular novel, and then with the voice acting, that part of it almost made me cry. This book is about Jarrett, who's the person that wrote the book, and it's about his time growing up and realizing that his mother is a drug addict, and that's why he's been living with his grandparents all of these years, and kind of that relationship, and how he never really knew his dad because his dad didn't take responsibility for him, and then later in life he actually finds his dad. And it's basically all about that childhood growing up being a little bit different from other kids. The reason why this audiobook is so interesting is a lot of the characters that you hear are actually the people from this story. Now, some of the people from this story, such as his grandparents, have passed on, so they're played by other people. Some of the people are, say, him when he's younger, and that's actually played by his daughter. When we're listening to his best friend, we're listening to his best friend's son playing the younger version, and his best friend playing his older version. And all of those little details, like when they were listing who was playing who at the end of the audiobook, and it was like, so-and-so as himself, so-and-so as himself, I was just like almost crying on my way home. It was good times. So yeah, if you're looking for an interesting adaptation, this is definitely one to pick up. Also, if you're going to be joining us for Audiobookathon, this is not only full cast, it's also read by the author in parts, as well as it is very short. I think this was under 4 hours. Next, I did a reread of Looking for Alaska for Valentines because we were meant to reread something, and I mostly did a reread of this as an audiobook because it's read by Wil Wheaton. So why not? The thing about listening to this audiobook is I have to swear that Wil Wheaton either knows John Green or is a John Green fan, because there was a lot of the cadences of the way he was saying things where I could swear I was just listening to John Green reading Looking for Alaska. And that was a little bit weird, but also a little bit awesome. Looking for Alaska is about Miles Halter, who goes to this boarding school and then falls in with this group of kind of misfits and falls in love with this girl named Alaska. It's split up between before and after, and when I first read this, I didn't really pay attention to what that was. I didn't know what that middle point was going to be. I wasn't trying to figure out what it was going to be. I was just enjoying these kids getting to know each other and kind of fumbling their way through this boarding school experience. I also reread it because I just watched the adaptation, and it was interesting to just go back to it and see what little things were changed and what attributes were given to different characters, or little things were changed around the timeline, or places where it was expanded because we didn't really know much about other people. Such as Alaska's relationship with Jake. There was definitely a big shift in whether or not they were together, and all of those types of things. This book does have the R word, which means I could never rate it 5 stars even if I wanted to. It's definitely not perfect. It's definitely not absolute trash either, which is a take that I see many people having, and that's valid, that's your opinion, that's fine. I just personally find that there is value in this. The final audiobook I listened to was Twice in a Blue Moon by Christina Lauren. This is about Tate, who is 18 years old and on a trip to London with her grandmother. Her grandmother is saved up for this trip. It's a graduation present before she goes off to college, although she's not really going that far away for college because her grandmother and her mom are a little bit protective of her. And it takes you a little bit of time to find out why. She has a significant secret, but she ends up actually telling somebody this secret. It's this boy that they meet on the first day. He is traveling with his grandfather, except for they're from Vermont and Tate and her grandmother are from California, and he's a little bit older, but he is very tall and very cute, and she is not looking for a romantic thing, but that doesn't mean she can't get to know him better. That's as much of the setup as I want to tell you, besides we go from this situation to 14 years later in their lives, and obviously something happens in that time frame. I wasn't looking for exactly what that thing was going to be. I didn't know going in, so if you also don't know, going in without knowing what's going to happen to change their lives is recommended. I do tend to always love the characters in Christina Lauren books. I do tend to love the romance. This one I had a little bit of a more hard time getting behind. I kind of guessed ahead of time why the event that happened, but I was still just so angry about it that, I don't know, it kind of tainted it. I was, of course, rooting for them to get back together because that's what everyone roots for in these types of books, but I also didn't really want them to, if that makes any sense. Like, I could feel the characters melting back together, and I was like, that's good for you, but I don't know if I could personally do that. That being said, I didn't heavily detest this. It's definitely worth reading if that's your jam, but this is I think my least favorite of theirs that I've read so far. But that might also be because her dad is a piece of shit. So who knows? That's it for this week. If you've read, watched, or listened to any of these, let me know about it down in the comments below. On the way down to the comments, if you hit that subscribe button, that would be very nice of you. If you don't feel like leaving a written comment, just leave your favorite emoji down below just so I know that you are here. You can like and share this as you see fit, and I will see you very soon. Bye!